I want to tell you about Layla. Layla Velez grew up in the slums of Rio de Janeiro. Her mother was a maid, her father a janitor. In the early 1990s, Layla was serving hamburgers at McDonald's. But she had a dream. Layla was frustrated by how few hair products there were for the curly locks of Afro-Brazilian women like her. Poor people deserve to feel beautiful too, she told her sister-in-law Zika, a hairdresser. In 1993, the two amateurs turned Layla's basement into a mad scientist's lab. They tested their first product on their husbands, and the men's hair promptly fell out. Going back to the sink, Layla and Zika perfected their formula and opened a salon. It was an unimpressive place, down a dark corridor, a mere 300 square feet. How can you be successful in such a pitiful space? Their friend said. But the sisters pushed on. Soon, women in Rio were waiting 4 to 6 hours for an appointment, and customers were crediting their products with not only improving their hair texture, but also boosting their self-esteem. When I tell this story to friends, they often say, "That must be one of those charming stories we keep hearing about women in microfinance." But there's nothing micro about Layla's story. Within a few years, her company, Beleza Natural, was selling an array of hair products in a handful of hair clinics. By 2013, Beleza Natural was serving 100,000 customers a month, employing 2,300 people, and earning $80 million a year. So how did Layla do it? How did she go from being an hourly worker at McDonald's to the leader of a multi-million-dollar franchise? And more to the point, what can the rest of us learn from her story to be more daring in our own lives? We can learn a lot. First, we can be reminded of the value of looking at the world through fresh eyes. The legendary retailer Sam Walton once said, "If everybody else is doing it one way, there's a good chance you can find your niche by going in exactly the opposite direction." Layla saw that everybody else was just selling hair products. She would sell confidence. She called her niche lipstick psychology. Many of the best ideas fulfill a need no one else knows exists. Earl Dixon was a 28-year-old cotton buyer for Johnson & Johnson in 1920 whose wife, Josephine, kept cutting herself while cooking. To staunch the bleeding, Josephine used the standard remedy, a piece of rag attached with string. The contraptions quickly fell off. Her husband began tinkering and soon presented his wife, then his bosses, with an alternative, a self-adhesive bandage with the cotton built in. Band-Aids, as they were called, failed to take off until the company gave away free samples to butchers and Boy Scouts. More than 100 billion of Earl's inventions have since been sold. Next, we can learn that psychology plays an enormous role in tackling risk. The biggest barriers to success are not structural or cultural. They're mental and emotional. At every turn, someone, or more likely everyone, will call you and your idea crazy. The job of the innovator is to push past naysayers and find a way to drive forward. Layla was soft-spoken and shy. She wasn't used to bold action, confrontation, or speaking out. Before she could foster confidence in others, she first had to discover it in herself. Finally, we can learn that risk-takers rarely go it alone. Those seeking to disrupt the status quo need support. And support doesn't just mean financial, though that always helps. More often, it means advice on handling fear, navigating tricky growth decisions, and breaking an intimidating task into manageable chunks. When Steve Jobs was just starting out, he sought the counsel of Robert Noyce, the co-inventor of the microchip and the unofficial mayor of Silicon Valley. As with everything he did, Jobs took this relationship to an extreme. He would drop by Noyce's house uninvited on his motorcycle or telephone around midnight. An exasperated Noyce finally told his wife, "If he calls one more time, I'm just not going to pick up the phone." But of course, noise always picked up. Entrepreneurs always find a way.